Time now for our rants and raves, starting with Dan, I think.
I have a rave for Ta-Nehisi Coates, who has a remarkable 8,200-word essay in the current issue of The Atlantic, in which he goes into great detail, not with new statistics, but he pulls them together in a really interesting way. And it's called The First White President. And what he does is essentially he shows that President Trump was not elected because of working-class whites, but because of white voters across the economic and educational spectrum. Essentially, this was a backlash after 8 years of President Obama. And given our previous topic, I will point out that he does use the term white supremacist.
Wow. In referring to Trump?
Well, in referring to what the appeal that he's making.
Oh,
he doesn't flat out call him a white supremacist, but he comes
Huckabee
this
Sanders.
close.
Yeah, she might get upset.
Yep.
All right, John.
Well, I have a rave for Peter Lucas, the veteran political columnist who writes for the Lowell Sun. And careful trigger warning, liberal viewers, he's a conservative.
Oh, yeah.
But he has a column that came out today. And again, sorry, John Henry, you're kind of having a tough day here. But that points out that first John Henry personally, then the Globe editorial page, and also at least one of their columnists has taken up this crusade to rename Yawkey Way, because Tom Yawkey, the owner of the Red Sox, was a racist. Well, there's a new book all about the Red Sox. When the author, who's done extensive research, interviewed African-American players, gone back and checked the record, he challenges that claim that Yawkey was such an overt racist. And Lucas points out Yawkey needs to be understood in the context of his times, when there were the Red Sox were all white, as was academia, as was business, right on down the line. He says, if John Henry's so eager to redress that historic injustice, how about seeing some more people of color at the top of the masthead of the Globe? And I think that's a fair point.
They were the last team in the league to have black players.
Yeah, they were. But read the column. It makes a compelling case.
Fair enough.
All right, Kelly.
I guess we have a little bit of a theme here. I am raving for Washington Post Wesley Lowery, once of the Boston Globe, of the Washington Post, who not only was on the Pulitzer Prize-winning team of reporters that went around counting up the police killings, not just of unarmed black men, but in general, because there were no stats. He wrote a book called They Can't Kill Us All, examining Ferguson and some other hot areas and controversies, racial controversies, and they're making a series out of it now for AMC.
Wow.
And I'm raving it because it's rare that you would have quite a serious topic being taken in on a commercial entity in that way, known for quote unquote
recreations?
I don't know how they're going to do it. They've hired a writing team. They've got a production company apparently of some note. I don't personally know them, and it's a series. So I guess they intend to not just do like sort of one big, maybe 2-hour thing, but really carefully look at some of the points that he brought up in his book. So interesting.
What a great idea. Plenty of material. Just today, there's this horrendous case in St. Louis.
Exactly.
Where a white cop shoots and kills an African-American person, and he had been caught on tape before using racial slurs. So there's plenty to work with.
Yeah. All right, Josh.
I'll continue the sort of depressing tone, I suppose. I have a rant about a study from the Annenberg Public Policy Center that came out this week, asking Americans what they know about their constitutional rights. And this is sort of an old story, but people don't know a lot about their constitutional rights. There were significant numbers of people who said, for example, that Muslims and atheists do not have the same constitutional rights as Christians or other people. But since this is a media criticism show, 37% of Americans could not name a single right from the First Amendment. Only 14% cited freedom of the press as something that's in the First Amendment. And perhaps most troublingly, when they were asked, should journalists be required to get government permission before every story about national security issues? And 39% of Americans said, yes, journalists should have to get permission before every story from the government. It's not...
That's all. Huh?
I suppose.
Right.
You know, with all the challenges to press freedom in the United States and around the world, it's not the most optimistic fact that a lot of people don't think that freedom of the press is that big of a deal.
Don't forget that NPR on April Fool's Day, I believe, replayed the actual Bill of Rights on piece, and people got mad at them saying, what is this, you commie people?
Yet another argument for some civics education.
All right, I'm going to change the tone a little bit, although the subject matter itself is rather grim. But I have a rave tonight for WCVB TV photographer Stan Forman, who was at the scene yesterday of this crane accident. And he starts out his piece by saying, he posted it on Facebook, and he said, it's not easy to watch someone die. But then he goes on to describe what really happened. I read a little blurb in the Globe, and it didn't really do justice to what happened. He said the man was very agile, dancing like a ballet dancer, running across the crane. He was athletic, doing sit-ups, hanging from the crossbars. He did chin-ups, jumped and ran. It was almost like watching the Walinda family on a tightrope. Just the description itself, it just gave me chills because I thought so much news just goes by you. You know, the little blurb, you know, it's not the Globe's fault. They didn't have time to do a whole big takeout. But this guy was an athlete. Now, whether he jumped or fell, it's not clear, but just putting something like this in context, and a beautiful photograph, 2-time Pulitzer Prize winner. Not that he needs any more accolades from me, but well done.